All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about round 7. Now, what round 7 is that fall pre-emergent where we come out before those winter weeds start to germinate and we get that nice barrier down, typically from our hose. We'll blanket spray the entire lawn from front to back, side to side, make sure we're getting up into the corners. That is where we are going to really get a good coverage to stop those winter weeds from sprouting here in a few weeks as we transition into the winter. Now, for the products, what I want to talk about, there are a few products that we use. So Prodiamine is going to be Prodiamine. I think I spelled this wrong, but that's going to be going into your big tank that you're going to be pre-mixing. Make sure you guys are using the mixing sheet to calculate that. And then we're not going to be putting any surfactant in the big tank because we want this stuff to get down into the soil of the grass to help create that barrier. Now, for the weed control, you're still going to be treating your broadleaf with the blue backpack, and then your nuts edge as well will be included in that blue backpack. And then you're also going to be treating for Dallas grass and King Ranch blue stem. So this is going to be the last round of the season that you actually have to focus on Dallas and King Ranch. As we get into round 8, we're actually going to drop those two and just focus on some type of winter pre-emergent and then a broadleaf weed control. So equipment, obviously you're going to use the big tank for the Prodiamine, and then you're going to use the backpack sprayers for the spot weed control. Now, it's really important as we start to transition into our tank mixes, spraying from the hip, as we're starting to pull hose, that wind starts to become a factor. So make sure when you get near those flower beds around the areas that you don't just spray from the hip here, kind of lean down, maybe spray from knee height, but just know you're going to be putting a lot more product down at that time. So if you get near bushes or things like that, just be careful when you're spraying around flower beds or bushes. Wind speed, again, when we're spraying from the hip. So what the Prodiamine label says is do not spray when drift can occur. Now that's a very, very vague statement, but I would say under probably 12, 15 mile an hour winds max is okay to actually log. So make sure you guys are still actually logging the chemicals on every single stop and the wind speeds throughout this round, like we need to be doing every single time. Now, stress conditions. So a lot of the times this is late summer, early fall is when we're doing this treatment. So we're actually just coming up towards the end of round 7 when I'm actually shooting this video, but this is a reflection of some of the stuff that you need to be aware of when you guys are out there. So we had very high heat stress and issues with the lawn. We had a drought for basically 2 months, the last 2 months. So it's really important that when you're going out and doing your fall pre-emergent, that this product, the Prodiamine, it will stress the plant out. So you cannot go out there and spray it if it looks like it's heat stress or it looks like there's a disease starting. If it isn't healthy and green, don't spray it. Use a 5-10-31, something that focuses on boosting the health and the root of the grass and not continually trying to stress it out even more. So the Prodiamine is only good for healthy Bermuda grass. If you have St. Augustine or you have Zoysia, we're still putting down our 5-10-31 with the push spreader just to make sure that that stuff gets really healthy. Those, St. Augustine in particular is very susceptible to diseases. So the last thing we want to do during a drought or towards the end of the drought is continue to stress it out more. So just be mindful of that. You're going to bounce back and forth. Probably, you know, half the lawns might be stressed, half the lawns might be somewhat okay, healthy to spray. There's going to be scenarios where you're out on the lawns and the front yard looks great. You can go ahead and spray it. You get to the backyard and you're like, whoa, okay, half of it is really stressed and yellow. The other half is not. Well, then just spray that good, healthy side and then get back to the truck, put 5-10-31 down or in the spreader, and then go out and put that on the other side. Now, it's really important too when we start to get into the job notes. So it's your responsibility as the applicator when you're out there to decipher and make that judgment call whether or not it is from heat stress or a disease. Now, sometimes it's a real gray area and we don't know what it is. So what I want you to do is try to remove yourself from that day-to-day thing and think about, okay, what happened over the last month? What happened over the last 2 months? Have we been in a drought? Was it during the winter time where there was maybe a harsh freeze? Is it early spring where we're getting a lot of rainwater? Like, these are some of the things that you have to start to think about when you're out there, because just because the grass is wet doesn't mean that that is a disease. It could have rained that night, but yet we had a drought for the last 2 months. Well, if we had a drought for the last 2 months and it rained last night and you get to the property and it looks like it's a disease, I would be willing to bet that it's more than likely a cause from lack of water. Now, there are a few signs that I want to jump in here to educate you guys on how to decipher, so that way you guys can make a good judgment call when you're out there. All right, so we are talking about heat versus disease. Now, what are some signs and symptoms between the two so that way you can decipher properly? I would first say to do a physical check of the property. And a heat or heat stress lawn, it's going to be very dry. In a disease lawn, it's going to be very moist. So a way that you can figure this out is by just sticking literally your finger in the soil, seeing if it's really hard dry, could be heat stress. If it's very moist, that could signal a disease. Now, what are some other things for heat stress? This is going to be if there is, and again, this is where the snapshot, kind of remove yourself from that morning of type visit and say, okay, logically, have we been in a drought? How much rain have we gotten? You know, things like that. If there's a drought going on, obviously that is a signal of heat stress. Cracks in the lawn. Now these are going to be real, sometimes 1 inch or 2 inches wide, where it looks like there's been some cracks. Funny, my applicator is like, sent me a picture on our Service Autopilot and was like, it looks like I'm about to fall down into these cracks, okay? If you start seeing those real big cracks, that is a sign of not enough water. Another sign is if the grass is really crunchy when you step on it, okay? That is a sign that that is a heat stress. Another sign is yellow in color. So again, the color does matter. So these are some things that can signify if it is heat stress. And if it is heat stress, what this basically leads to is increase watering. Now, when you recommend to customers to increase water, what we want to do is you want to recommend them to water it late in the mornings, because if you do it too soon, like 11 or midnight, and the water sits on that lawn for hours until the sun comes up. And what does that do? It creates moisture in the lawn. So the last thing we want to do is go from a super heat stress lawn, have them water super early in the night, create a ton of moisture in their lawn, and then now there's a disease that starts to happen. So generally speaking, when it's real hot, 3-4 times a week is recommended. 5 minutes a zone. Late mornings, like 4 a.m. is a good time to start. By the time it goes through the cycle, after a couple of hours, the sun's popping up and that moisture is not sitting there, that could potentially cause a disease. Now, what are some signs of a disease? There is, if there's definitely moisture in the lawn, gray in color. So this is another potential issue that could arise. There's something called root rot. So it basically looks like it sounds. Okay, it looks like the roots of the grass. You'll find this a lot in St. Augustine lawns. The kind of crawlers or the roots of the grass basically look like white in color, white or gray. I should put a slash here. So we'll go white, gray and white in color. But this is sometimes what you can see for diseases. And so you just kind of have to decipher between the two. I will tell you that all in all, outside of this, so as an applicator, it's your responsibility to decipher whether it is a heat or disease. And what I want to explain to you is you are the lawn doctor when you're out there. Just like if you had a cough and you went to the doctor, they're not going to automatically jump and say, oh, yep, you've got pneumonia, right? They're not going to do that. They're going to start off, they're going to ask you, okay, what are the symptoms? These are the symptoms. Okay, let's maybe start off on this side that maybe doesn't cost a lot of money. And let's say, hey, let's increase the water just a little bit. Or like, I guess from the doctor perspective, it would be, hey, you know what? We're going to prescribe you some cough medicine, some Tylenol, drink some water, and come back and see us in a week if it doesn't get better. Week goes by, you take the cough medicine, you drink water, you take Tylenol, and you're still not getting better. Okay, now they're going to potentially test you for, you know, oh, and you mentioned too also that like, oh, hey, maybe your throat hurts or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, maybe the next step is going to be we're going to test you for strep throat, and then we're going to test you for the flu, right? They're not just going to jump to, oh, yeah, you've got pneumonia like right off the bat. They're going to progressively start to prescribe you more things as you continually go back to the doctor. Same thing here in the lawn. We don't want to just automatically jump, oh, everything's a disease. That's not always the case. You have to figure out where you are in the season, diagnose things properly, and I would tell you that it is cheaper to be like, hey, let's increase the watering, see if it gets any better. If it doesn't, then let's go on to the next thing. This could be a potential disease, and we're just going to go down the line to try and fix what the problem is.